Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day. We're going to take a quick look here at Bitcoin, see what's going on. Obviously, a very significant uptrend here. Broke very clean from its resistance there at 88.5 after an overextension. Keep in mind, this is a fundamental catalyst. There's a lot of momentum flowing right back into Bitcoin and altcoins, solely because of like the China tariffs. There was a tweet, something regarding President Trump essentially going easy on China and not enforcing, what he has been doing here so far. So I think that played pretty big role here. And as we take a look at the charts here, we can recognize that this local high of roughly 92.5 didn't hold very strong. What did happen instead is all the liquidation, the upside here, got fully swept there, that 94K range, and that would have been a perfect area to consider a short position, at least within tight margins. Because once more, folks, you don't just short overextensions because the price is up like this. Best practice is to wait for a range to be established and to trade either the range or the breakout. And that's, once again, based on the overall sentiment here. When I say breakout, I don't normally like to trade breakouts, but this is a breakout type of scenario here in most cases because there's this fundamental euphoria going on right now. The price hasn't pulled back yet, and there's a decent chance at 90,000 or 88.5 if it were to come. If that comes to pass, that will be a solid support range for us. So taking a look here at the liquidation locally here, I mean, there's a little bit left up about 96,000, but those are just recent shorts. There's nothing too much here. From a macro perspective, every single last ounce of liquidation, upwards of 94.5, got fully hit. And anyone shorting had a bad day yesterday, including ourselves. I mean, it wasn't a bad day, honestly. We closed our trade early before it continued to stop loss, and we secured profits with XRP and Solana to offset. So not the worst thing ever, but we're at 35 billion liquidation delta, folks. This is pretty massive. The largest I've seen is about 25 billion. That was before the extra pump from yesterday. So this is something you don't want to short into. That's just the general consensus there. And I don't necessarily recommend shorting. The best case scenario for us is to probably consider taking a long in the low to mid, like 90, 91K range for further upside. At this point, everything's on fire and you don't want to kind of trade against it. Okay. So once more, a quick short from 94,000, 93,000, that would have been a good call. Right now at this point, I think it's too late to long, too early to short, if that makes sense. So we're going to look here at open interest. We can recognize there's not a tremendous amount of open interest here locally. Okay, so when we're going to be looking at the charts here today, we're going to be looking solely at support and resistances, but mainly support levels in case the price were to pull back, right? So we're going to update our fib levels here. I generally like to wait for the daily candlestick to close first before I do this, but this will still give us a good perspective on roughly where we're at, because it does show that 0.236, 90,000 is approximately that next area of support, and obviously secondary to that, about 87,000. Keep in mind, folks, fib levels help us. It's kind of a general guide, but it's not consistent. Okay, you got to recognize that. It's just kind of, in a lot of ways, it's a placebo effect for people. Like Elliott wave, for example, it's nice because it comes true sometimes, but if you throw enough scenarios out there, you're always going to be right. Okay, so when it comes to Elliott wave or Fibonacci retracement, just be careful using that consistently. It helps. Don't get me wrong. I use it in every single chart for the most part, but you got to recognize that it's not like the end all. What's more important nowadays is key level supports and resistances based on open interest and volume. Those are really things that are probably the most substantial that I feel are going to be a little bit more beneficial. So just be mindful of that if you're following other influencers that have a tendency of just solely talking about that one thing and that's all they do. When we look at fair value gap, though, pretty significant here. Again, 88.5 is that lower area, that significant value there, where the price action should come down at some point. So do you short right now at this point? Maybe, maybe not. We still want to look at the charts a little further and find out, but it feels a little early. However, we have spent a good 12 hours up in this range, and there's a decent chance if we do pull back, that fair value gap could get filled. So just future reference, heads up, 88.5 is kind of that common denominator because it was a previous high, should work as a new low if it's retested. Okay. And the question is if it's retested. We don't know if that's going to happen yet, but we haven't spent a lot of time in this range here either. I mean, you look at Bitcoin and the overall sentiment, we have a lot of resistance above us at about 97,000. So the price does continue higher. 97K would be a very sensible consideration for a short because we have the most amount of volume when Bitcoin was in the 90 to 110K range at roughly 97,000. So if you remember that, we spent a lot of time there before. Either way, We're not there yet, but we're pretty darn close. Otherwise, we can kind of summarize here that the daily time frame is fully bullish, and generally speaking, shorting against this isn't necessarily the best idea. But once more, you want to be mindful that what goes up must come down, and there's a lot of profit to be taken there. So I wouldn't be surprised if profit is taken and market makers push the price down to that 90 to 88.5K range. Okay, so just know that's an area of very of significant interest to me. I'm interested in getting in that range for a long position at this point. 4-hour time frame is going to confirm that we're massively overextended, and a correction makes sense here. We hit a 9 on TD sequential roughly yesterday before the market had opened, and that was at 88.5, basically implying that we are overextended leading into 88,500, and Bitcoin ended up pushing up an extra 7% after that. That's quite substantial. Okay, so all that being said, once more, you can see that fair value gap a little clearer here on the smaller time frames between 88.5 and 90,000.5. The hourly time frame is going to recognize here as well that we're getting closer to this area of opportunity closing. In other words, the likelihood of the price going much higher from here immediately is lower. We're probably going to range for a little while and then continue higher. A lot of times what you'll see is you will see the price action kind of work itself into like a channel. We've seen this happen a lot. In fact, we saw our bullish rectangle play out before when the price broke free from 85,000. That's when we got our last long position and we took some nice profits there. But when you look here, this is the rough estimate of what should happen here, is the price could and should kind of hold this range. And if it does, then we're going to probably go higher to that 97K. If it doesn't work out that way and we kind of lose this local support of roughly 92.5, then I do feel like the 90 to 88.5K range is likely. But at this point, the general consensus is that the trend is up. You respect the trend, and generally shorting against this would be unfavorable. Now, I am leaning a little bit more towards shorting this just based on the simple fact that we do have, profits that have to be taken. It's just standard 101. When the price goes up, it must come down at some point. I don't think this is, unless there's like another fundamental catalyst, the likelihood of pushing up much higher immediately is pretty low. So that's just my thoughts there. I would be very careful if you do consider a short. It would be basically considered a high risk short, but the bottom line is that it would make sense for some profits to be taken, that fair value gap to get filled, and that that could inevitably happen at some point. Is it going to happen today? Probably not, but we will see here. So that's kind of where we're at there. It's a really unique situation, but the simple way to understand it to me is that 90,000, 88.5, that's some really solid. It's a really solid area of interest for consideration on a long. Okay, because hypothetically the price should pull back to pivot off that level. If that does happen, it'd be nice to be poised and ready to take a long at that level. Okay, so that kind of goes for altcoins too. If altcoins continue to kind of pull back for the next couple of days with Bitcoin, if that occurs, get ready to kind of buy those dips. Essentially, consider a local high as a new low for those altcoins. We'll look at some altcoins here shortly too. Either way, I hope that was helpful. I know it wasn't like a definitive answer. I'm not always going to tell you to take a long to the moon. In hindsight, I wish we'd taken longs yesterday, but the truth is when you have these kind of catalysts, you're always better off waiting on the sidelines, even if there's tons of FOMO going on right now. Okay, so I feel content with the fact that we took a nice couple of longs there. Last week we hit both of our full profit targets on both of our Bitcoin longs, so we're really doing okay, in good shape. So just pump the brakes, folks. It's okay if you miss some opportunities. Don't be upset with that. It's pretty much par for the course. Like the market is literally filled with missed opportunities. All right. Well, I hope you have a great rest of the day. I deeply appreciate you watching. Thanks again so much for being an amazing part of my life. Hit that like button, comment below. Join us over on Twitter, Telegram, and Discord if you'd like to kind of see what's going on over there as well. Some good stuff coming. All right, folks. Have a good rest of your day. We'll see you again. Take care.